Yo, what's up, duelists? Today I got the top 8 deck lists from the Ultimate Rare Dandelion Tournament at Collector's Emporium in New York. These lists are absolutely fire. These duelists are absolutely popping. They're out here dueling their hearts out. Without further ado, let's get right into things. For the first list, the top 8, 8th place, I believe, or 5th place. I don't know how this shit works. You got James Ark. James Ark actually made it all the way to top 8, which is sick. Shout out to James Ark for showing up to this event and making it all the way to top 8 with, I believe, his kind of, I want to say one of his signature decks, one of his decks he's known for. He's put a lot of work into Vayu Turbo. I think the more common versions of Vayu Turbo that we see nowadays is largely as a result of James Ark peddling the deck and having a lot of success with it on like early online tournaments in 2020 and whatnot. But yeah, I think he's one of the better players at playing this deck. He's got some new tech. He doesn't look too different from his usual. The biggest difference is he's got 2 hamster. He does like that only 2 Sirocco. I personally dislike that. I think Sirocco is one of the best cards in the deck, but I know he likes to slim on the normal summons. He's playing Book of Moon, which I think is a good card. He doesn't have Chaos Sorcerer, but he does have Return, which is interesting. Most of the other lists we've been seeing have success recently are playing both Chaos Sorcerer and Return, but it is interesting that he's at least on the Return. The sideboard looks very straightforward. Extra deck looks like what you'd expect. Armory Arm over, Red Dragon or maybe Android, one of the other cards that would slot into that spot. He's also only got the 2 Armed Wing instead of the full 3. So interesting stuff. Congrats to James Ark for making it to top 8. Also in the top 8, also probably tied for 5th place, is Chris. Chris's top 8 list, he was playing Quick Draw Dandy Warrior. Now, this is a very different list from my list that I took to the Xanadu tournament this weekend as well. But he's got some cool tech. 42 cards is something that me and a couple other players who play Quick Draw have been talking about, just to decrease the chances of seeing Titanial in your opening hand. This looks very similar to Feng Shui's top 8 RBET list with the 1 Quick Draw. However, it does have Spirit Reaper and only 1 Thestalos, but main deck Lad. There's a lot of interesting tech choices here that are slightly different, but the general construction is very similar to Feng Shui's top 8 list. The sideboard is pretty interesting. Triple Vanities, Double Decree, looking to lock out special summons. Vanity's Decree is very insane versus Vayu Turbo. It's very difficult for them to deal with that card specifically. If you can summon Vanities plus Decree, you're pretty much going to win unless they have specifically Brain Control or Gale. I guess Raikou kind of. But yeah, interesting stuff. Extra deck does have the Bryonic and the Catastor. Usually these are better off being Red Dragon. Oh no, he has Red Dragon. Better off being Iron Chain Dragon? I guess he has that too. He has Goyo. How did he make room for all this? Holy shit. I don't know how he made room for all this. I guess he cut a Stardust, cut an Iron Chain, cut an Ancient Fairy. Yeah, that would be all 3. Okay. No, yeah, that makes sense. Pretty straightforward stuff. The Cold Wave in the sideboard is really interesting. I actually have not been a fan of My Body as a Shield, but when you're siding Triple Vanities, it makes a lot more sense. You just want to protect that guy in the matchups where he matters. Having My Body plus Vanities is it's pretty solid. It protects it from Lightning Vortex, Bottomless Trap Hole, Raikou, that sort of stuff that normally challenges Vanity's Fiend. Overall, very interesting list. I think it's a lot more Monarch focused, a lot more Tribute Monster focused than the list that I had played at the tournament. The list that I had played at the tournament was not playing Rise of Thestalos, Light and Darkness Dragon, Spirit Reaper. It was only playing 1 Hamster. I was only playing 2 Avarice. I think playing 3 Avarice is just inviting dead opening hands. Between 3 Avarice and your, 7 or 8 Tribute Monsters, this deck is just going to brick a lot, but looks like it worked out well for Chris. He actually, I believe, went undefeated in Swiss, so good stuff to Chris. Shout out to him for making it all the way to top 8 with Quick Draw Dandy Warrior. Very difficult feat. No, I'm just kidding. The deck is fantastic. Next up. Also at 5th place, we got Christian. Sorry, I was gonna say also Chris, but no, this isn't Christian. Sorry, this is Jared. This is Jared's list. Jared's top 8 lists. He was playing Flamvel Zombie Cat. Very unique take on the strategy. I believe he was 4-2 going into top 8. So little bit of variance here and there. Ended the day 4-3, which is a respectable record. I mean, going positive in a tournament environment is always respectable, especially with a unique style of deck like this one. However, just upon looking at this, the first thing that comes to mind is like how often some of these cards are going to be in my opening hand that are cards that I don't want to be in my opening hand, more or less. But a really cool build. The side deck Magic Cylinder is very interesting. Siding Consecrated Light when you're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 darks is something else. I'm surprised he managed to make all of the extra deck monsters fit between Instant Fusion, the Cat Synchros, multiple level 8s, the Zombie Revived King Hades. I'm just shocked he was able to fit it all in his extra deck, which is really cool. He's not playing Cyber Dragon. He's actually elected for System Down. I think that's probably a concession to the fact that he can't fit Chimera Tech in his extra deck. Triple Threatening Roar and Dust Shoot's probably a concession to something like, I don't know, Dragon Turbo or something. Siding Royal Oppression, very interesting, going for that Stardust Oppression setup with the Flamvel monsters. Just overall a cool deck. I think it's very interesting to play a deck that wants both the zombies and the Flamvels in the graveyard and has no way to expedite them getting there, outside of like Karma Cut, Phoenix Wing, and Regeki Break, which he's playing a lot of discard traps. The discard traps are very versatile, but they do come at a very real cost. They cost you a full card. One Pot of Avarice, very interesting. Reuse the Synchros, reuse the Cat plays. This deck is sick. I think this looks like a deck that I would play for fun and get mad at because I break so much, but in theory, like on paper, it looks like a very fun deck, and it's definitely a deck I'll probably be trying. So shout out to Jared for his Flamvel Cat Zombie deck, which is pretty interesting. Okay, next is Christian. All right. This is Christian's Hero Frog deck. Looks pretty straightforward. We've seen a bunch of lists almost identical to this. One thing I do really like about his list that not a lot of Hero Frog players have done is he's added the 5th Monarch. I actually think that this is way better than playing 2 Malicious Fiend or Malicious Edge. I think just having more density of Monarchs is the best way to play this deck by far. I think even if you could fit the 6th Monarch, that'd be really good. Maybe over the 3rd Swap Frog or over the main deck Snowman Eater could be a good spot. But another thing I do like about his deck is that he's playing Battle Fader and not Threatening Roar. I know a lot of Frog players are moving towards Threatening Roar because they fear Drago, but I think just having so many cards that you set to your back row is just going to lead you to like be forced to play those cards to get value out of Treeborn. So it's really counterintuitive to what your deck is actually trying to accomplish, which is +1 every turn with Treeborn. I think having Battle Faders is definitely like, you just say fuck it, if they have Drago I lose, but I think that that's fine. You know what I mean? I think it's like just a concession you have to make when playing a deck like this in order to maximize the value of your Treeborn Frogs, more or less. Also playing Threatening Roars and stuff like that makes Space Typhoons really live game 1. Game 2, you can side in a bunch of trap cards. Looks like that's what Christian was doing here. He's also got Breaker the Magical Warrior with double Compulse. That is a tech that I have been a big fan of. I like it a lot less in Frog decks because this deck needs its normal summon more than any other deck. And this deck is going to get rugged more than any other deck. And Breaker the Magical Warrior does get rugged. So I don't love it in the Frog deck, but if you do get into a situation where you're like reusing the Breaker with Swap Frog, that's got to feel pretty good. And he just gives you a clean out to Mask of Restrict. I do like Lila a little bit better than Breaker in the sideboard of Frogs. A, it's got slightly more attack points, could matter. B, the milling is actually pretty fucking good. You can hit Treeborn Frog or a hero or hit something for your Junk Synchron, which is pretty fucking good. Or, and C, it doesn't get rugged. It can help you play through rug, which is kind of nice, but it's all marginal stuff here and there. I like the Super Poly and the Soul Release, Soul Exchange. One main, one side is pretty interesting. I wonder what the logic is there. Probably just want an extra one going second. You want to side it out going first, but you don't want to be caught without it going second game 1. I get it. I totally get it. Decklist looks clean. I think I would play something similar to this. I may cut like the Alias or cut the Snowman Eater from the main, depending on what's been going on in my local meta, but This deck list looks really clean. Shout out to Christian. All right, moving on to top four. Top four is where we got the spice. Oh, shit. Ooh, top four, we got Michael's Chainburn. Shout out to Michael for bringing Chainburn and making it all the way to top four of this tournament. Chainburn's busted. I think people really sleep on this deck. I think this list is a little bit sus. I really don't like Threatening Roar and Wabaku in Chainburn. I like to play as few of those as possible. But it looks like he's elected to add Threatening Roar and like an extra Legacy of Yada and an extra Jar of Greed over Jester Comfeats and Allure, which arguably is all marginal. I do think Jester Comfeat comes up a lot because it can bounce Android, and it can also like fuel Cyber Dragon or Cyber Valley going second, which is pretty important. But and I do like Allure because it's like more chances at seeing your Morphing Jar and your Chain Strike, like your power cards. But overall, I mean, I think those changes are marginal, and I do think that Chainburn is like one of those decks that like people don't really respect enough. I think it's definitely a scarier deck than people think. In the sideboard, he's elected to not go for the Caiuses, which is something I know Frog Slicer really likes. It is really interesting to me that he has 2 Chimera Techs in his sideboard, but he has extra space in his extra deck. That feels like a deck building error. Also, Emergency Provisions doesn't work the way I think he thought it did. So probably also another deck building error. What a lot of people think is that Royal Decree and Trap Stun will negate the cards as long as they're on the field, like how Skill Drain does. But in Edison format, and I think even now, Royal Decree and Trap Stun will negate the trap cards even if they're not on the field at resolution. So like, what I'm assuming he was thinking is he would go play 4 trap cards, his opponent goes Royal Decree, he chains Emergency Provisions, destroy all 4 of his traps to dodge the Royal Decree, but that doesn't work. It would still negate all the effects of all the trap cards because they were activated on the field. So, not exactly certain how that went down in the tournament, or if that was just something that he had to find out the hard way. Definitely think that the Kaya stuff is a little bit better in the spot, or Breakers to hit Royal Decree and Dust Tornadoes are a lot better in this spot. I'm a big fan of Breaker in this deck in particular because your opponent's going to be siding out bottomless and siding out pulling the rug versus you. There's no shot in hell that they're going to be siding and pulling the rug versus a deck that's fucking 32 trap cards basically, and has no cards to proc it in the main. So I do think the Emergency Provisions is a little bit sus. It's not the worst thing in the world. Like, you can still just use it as like a +1 chain and like gain 4,000, which is kind of cool. But like, it's really only that type of effect's really only necessary for like the mirror match. And it's like, how do you expect to see the mirror match? I don't know. Maybe. Let's see what else is in top 4. Maybe you will expect to see some type of mirror match. All right. Second top 4 list, we've got Jason's Blackwing hybrid deck. As classic as it gets. Not too much to say here. Double Compulsory in the main deck's cool. Double Grepher's cool. I do like this list. I do miss Book of Moon. I think it should start doing the rounds back into Blackwings again. I think that card is very slept on, Book of Moon in general. I think like our opinions on it back in the day were very high, and then I think we went through this kind of like resurgence where it's like it's not that good, and then I think we're kind of at this middle ground where it's like it's pretty good and we should probably be playing it in some capacity. That being said, if Value Turbo is really popular in your area, I don't think Book of Moon's that good versus Value Turbo, so I can kind of see it. I do really like hybrid Blackwings. I think it's my favorite build of Blackwings. I think playing Dark Grepher is better than not playing Dark Grepher, just because of how quick it is and how easy it is to get your deck devastations online. That, to me, is like the biggest draw to playing the hybrid Blackwings. I stole that idea from Dimitri, basically, but yes. I do think hybrid Blackwings is more fun, too. It's just really aggressive. You just send it. 7 tools on the side is kind of cool. Extra deck looks about as straightforward as it gets. Not much to say here. Second place, Amaryllis Burn from Adam. Adam's Amaryllis Burn deck. And this deck is possibly part of the reason why this top 4 list had emergency provisions, because he knew there was going to be other Burn players at the tournament. Amaryllis Burn is just one of the scariest decks. If it ever gets going, it's really fucking difficult to face. Titanial is like, I would compare it to Herald of Ultimateness or Herald of Perfection in Edison format. It's along those same lines of like really miserable to play against when they have like plant monsters in play. It is very difficult to attack this deck, especially once it gets going. I think it's very interesting he's on Debris Dandy. I know some lists are not playing it, but I do think Debris Dandy is a great way to force damage, because you can go Debris Dandy and then either Black Rose into DDR, or you can Black Rose switch their monster to attack position and change its attack and defense to 0, so you can force through damage that way. I do like this list a lot. It looks really clean. I think that he's skipped out on a lot of the like less consistent cards or the high rolly cards. He is missing Call of the Haunted, which I think is kind of a strong card, but it's really only strong once you get going in this deck. Maybe he figures that DDR is the only recursion he needs. There's a lot of good stuff about this deck list. It just looks very tight, very clean. I like it a lot. The sideboard is interesting as well. My Body is a Shield to protect your Titanial from Lightning Vortex, Torrential, and Mirror Force. Aaron to help you against those really annoying Spirit Reapers and whatnot. Goblin Zombies, that sort of deck. Double Skill Drain is very interesting. This deck does do pretty well under Drain. Although sometimes it does worse under Drain than the deck it's facing. Like sometimes you'd just rather have your Titanial be live in a sense that it could sack other monsters. Titanial can still sack itself and negate something under Drain, but it can't sack other monsters and negate things under Drain. So very interesting list. Very interesting. This is a list that looks like something I would like load up if I wanted to just play like a stock Amaryllis Burn list. It looks very, very well tuned, very well thought out, very well practiced. One card that I think also could be good in this deck is Book of Moon. Honestly, once again, I think Book of Moon could be really good in here. Not only do you have the Debris Black Rose to work with Book of Moon as well, it helps protect your Titanial, it helps reset some of your flip effect monsters or protect your Lila so you can get more mills. And then when you side in those Royal Decrees, it just makes sure that you have defense under Royal Decree. So I do think Book of Moon could actually be an interesting choice for this deck in particular. Maybe over Bottomless, honestly. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe over Bottomless, Book of Moon could be really good here. I might try it like that. We'll see. But Adam's list looks very tuned. And then, of course, Nick, the Amaryllis GOAT. You know him. He got 3rd at Nats, the biggest Ultimate Time Wizard tournament this year. He is kind of the person who... Well, Carpath put Amaryllis on the map, but Nick's been, like, putting it on his back, if that makes sense. Nick's basically been playing Amaryllis at almost every single tournament. He played it at RBET Rulers. He's played it at a bunch of different events. He's had, honestly, pretty good results overall in the year, kind of solidifying himself as one of the strongest players, not only in his region, but in the world, which is really sick that he's doing it with such a unique and creative deck. His list is pretty different from Adam's list, which is cool. And one thing that's also really cool is this means that there was an Amaryllis Burn finals at this tournament. I wonder what that matchup is like. I've never played the mirror match, Amaryllis versus Amaryllis, but I'm pretty sure that Nick has uploaded it to his YouTube channel. So definitely check him out on YouTube. Let me see if I can pull him up real quick. Hold up. Hold tight. Let's see if I can pull it up real quick. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna try and find his. I'm gonna try to find his YouTube channel so you guys can see it. We gotta plug this boy. What do I search? Nick Amaryllis Burn. Let's see. It's Lil Man Yu-Gi-Oh. Yu-Gi-Oh spelled YGO. Hold up. I'm gonna pull it up. Real quick. Here y'all are. Check it out. There it is. Lil Man Yu-Gi-Oh. It looks like he did upload his match. His finals match versus Adam, the mirror match. And that is something that I'd be really curious to check out. I'm definitely going to pop that on while I'm watching dinner, just to get an idea of how how his deck might do in comparison to Adam's in the mirror. One thing that I'm like noticing is he's got those Fiend Comedians. That's a great card for helping deal with the mirror. And he's also got Volcanic Counter, which can help him if his opponent's just swinging crazy with Titanial. So I do like those effects. Yeah, no, this looks great. The list just looks really clean. It looks very similar to the previous one. He's got a few differences. I think the biggest difference is he's not playing Gores. He's also not playing the third Raikou. So he's trimmed on normal summons and starters a little bit. He is playing Botanical Lion in place of... What is he playing Botanical Lion? Oh, Debris Dragon. He's also playing one other card in place of Debris Dragon. What is it? I can't even tell. It's a monster. Oh, is it Sangan? Yeah, it's Sangan in place of Debris Dragon. Interesting. Very interesting. Sangan, most likely to find him Card Trooper, but it could also get you to Lone Fire or Morphing Jar. Actually, Sangan seems great in this deck. Still got the Hidden Armory package. Still got the Foolish Heavy Storm. He is playing Brain Control, which surprisingly Adam has cut. I mean, it makes sense, right? You don't have a lot of conversions outside of Plague, and you can already tutor for Brain Control with Hidden Armory for Mark of the Rose, so you don't really need Brain Control in this deck. It's a really interesting decision for Adam to cut it. Threatening Roar, triple Wind Blast, electing not to play the bottomless in the main at all. He is playing the Call of the Haunted. I do think Call of the Haunted is fantastic in this deck. Don't get me wrong. I think it's really good. I just think that like it's only good once you've started to get going. But once you've started to get going, it's like pretty much the best card in your deck. And he's also on 41 cards. Very interesting stuff. Sideboarding card destruction. That's wild. I've never seen anything like that in my life. But yeah, shout out to Nick. Go check him out on YouTube. And thank you guys for tuning in. Going to be playing a lot more Edison this week. I hope you guys are having a good holiday season. I hope you guys are having a good holiday break. And leave a like, leave a subscribe, and let me know which of these top 8 decks you'd like to see me play the most. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.